June sat in the quiet of his small home. He looked at the screen in front of him. The numbers on it did not change much. They showed the air pressure. They showed the wind speed. They were not very interesting. He took a sip of his coffee. It was warm, but it did not taste very good. He made it from a powder. It was all he had. This was his life now. He was the only person on the whole planet. His home was a small metal building. It was called a listening post. It was placed on a quiet world named Gaia 2. His job was to watch the screens. He had to make sure the machines outside were working. He had to collect the information they found. It was a 1-year job. He had been here for 10 months. He had 2 more months to go. The company that sent him said the planet was peaceful. They said there was no intelligent life. Just plants and simple animals. For 10 months they were right. Nothing ever happened. The days were all the same. He woke up. He checked the machines. He ate food from his packages. He exercised in the small room. He read books on his tablet. He slept. Then he did it all again. He was very lonely. Sometimes he would put on his suit and go outside. The air was safe to breathe, but the company said he should wear the suit. It was for protection. Outside, the world was very green. The sky was a soft purple color. There were 2 suns. One was big and yellow. One was small and red. The trees were tall and had blue leaves. At night, there were 6 moons. They shone in the sky like strange, pale fruits. It was beautiful, but it was a lonely beauty. There was no one to share it with. His only job was to watch and listen. He was not a soldier. He was not an explorer. He was a warden, a caretaker. He made sure nothing broke. He was like a man watching a very quiet, very large garden. His only real friend was the hydroponics bay. This was a small room inside his post. It was full of plants growing in water, not dirt. He grew lettuce and tomatoes and herbs. Taking care of the plants gave him something to do. It was a small piece of earth in this strange, quiet place. He would talk to the plants sometimes, just to hear a human voice, even if it was his own. Today was like every other day. He finished his coffee. He stood up from his chair. It was time to check the hydroponics bay. The lettuce was almost ready to eat. He walked to the small room and opened the door. The air inside was wet and smelled of green things. It was a good smell. He checked the water levels. He checked the lights. Everything was fine. He looked at the small green lettuce leaves. "You are growing up so fast," he said to the plants. His voice sounded strange in the quiet room. Suddenly, a loud noise filled the post. It was an alarm. A sharp, piercing sound he had never heard before. His heart jumped in his chest. For a second, he just stood there, confused. What was that? The air pressure was fine. The power was fine. He ran back to the main room. The main screen was flashing red. Words scrolled across it. Perimeter breach, unknown signatures, perimeter breach. That meant something was inside the safety zone around his post. The zone was a circle 2 kilometers wide. Nothing was ever supposed to be in there. He sat down quickly at the console. His hands moved over the controls. He pulled up the scanner map. He saw the blinking lights. There were 4 of them. One was small and colored green on the screen. It was moving very fast. It was running. The other 3 were bigger and colored red. They were chasing the green one. The red lights were firing small energy pulses at the green light. They were hunters, and they were hunting the green light. His mouth felt dry. This was not a simple animal. The signatures were technological. They used energy weapons. The company was wrong. There was intelligent life here, and they were violent. The chase was heading right for the deep ravine just north of his post. It was a steep, rocky crack in the land. If the green light went into the ravine, it would be trapped. There was no way out. June's mind raced. What should he do? The company rules were very clear. He was an observer. He was not to make contact. He was not to interfere. His job was to watch and report. If he saw something strange, he was to send a message to the company and hide. But he could not just hide. He could not sit and watch while someone was hunted down like an animal just outside his door. The green light was a person, he was sure of it. A person who was scared and needed help. He made a decision. He was going to interfere. He ran to the equipment locker. He put on his full environment suit. It was strong and could stop small projectiles. He sealed the helmet. Then he went to the weapons locker. He was not a soldier, but the company gave him one heavy weapon. It was for extreme emergencies. like if a big, dangerous animal tried to break in. The weapon was a large, heavy rifle. It was a magnetic accelerator rifle. It did not fire bullets with gunpowder. It used magnets to shoot a small, heavy piece of metal very, very fast. It was very powerful. It was made for breaking rocks or stopping large, charging animals. It was not a graceful weapon. It was loud and brutal. He picked it up. It was heavy in his hands. He loaded a magazine of solid metal slugs. He hoped he would not have to use it. Maybe he could just scare the hunters away. He typed a quick message to the company. Perimeter breach. Multiple hostile contacts engaging. He hit send. He did not wait for a reply. There would not be one for hours anyway. He opened the heavy outer door of the post. The purple sky and the green landscape greeted him. The air was warm. He could hear the sounds of the forest. And now he could hear something else. The high-pitched whine of energy weapons. And a sound that might have been a cry of fear. He started to run. He knew the land well. He had walked around his post many times. He ran towards the ravine. His heavy boots crushed the blue grass under his feet. The rifle was heavy on his shoulder. His breath was loud inside his helmet. He reached the edge of the ravine and dropped to his stomach. He crawled forward and looked down. The scene below made his blood go cold. The green light was a person, an alien. She was pressed against a large gray rock at the bottom of the ravine. She looked young. Her skin was smooth and pale like a pearl. She had long dark hair. She was wearing simple, light-colored robes that were now torn and dirty. Her eyes were large and full of terror. The three hunters were closing in on her. They were big. They were reptilian with rough, scaly green skin. They wore pieces of dark, crude metal as armor. One of them held a long weapon that fired small bolts of red energy. Another had a whip made of crackling energy. The third had a large knife. They were not trying to kill her quickly. They were playing with her. The one with the whip snapped it near her feet. She flinched back against the rock. The hunters made loud guttural sounds. They were laughing. This was a game for them. June felt a hot anger rise in his chest. This was not right. He had to stop it. He stood up on the ridge. He was high above them. He lifted the heavy rifle. He flipped the safety off. The weapon hummed to life in his hands. He looked through the scope on his helmet. He could see the lead hunter, the one with the energy whip. He did not want to kill them. He just wanted to stop them, to scare them. He aimed the rifle. The targeting reticle in his visor settled on the hunter's weapon arm. He took a deep breath. He held it. Then he pulled the trigger. The sound was enormous. It was not a sharp crack, but a deep, powerful thump that shook the air. The gun kicked hard against his shoulder. Down in the ravine, the hunter's energy whip exploded. The super-dense metal slug hit it and tore it into 100 pieces. The force of the impact picked the hunter up and threw him backwards onto the ground. He screamed in pain and surprise. The other two hunters froze. Their laughter stopped. They looked at their friend on the ground. Then they looked up. They saw June. He was a strange sight to them. A figure in a bulky gray environment suit holding a large smoking rifle. He stood on the ridge, silhouetted against the purple sky. He looked like a giant or a machine. June moved the rifle. He aimed at the second hunter's leg. He fired again. Thump! The hunter yelled as the slug tore into the ground next to his foot, throwing up dirt and rock. It was a warning shot. The hunters understood. This was not a fight they could win. The raw, physical power of June's weapon was something they had never seen. It was not clean energy. It was brutal force. The one on the ground scrambled to his feet, clutching his injured arm. He and the other two looked at June one more time. Then they turned and ran. They scrambled up the other side of the ravine and disappeared into the forest. The ravine was quiet again. The only sounds were the wind and the faint hum of June's rifle. He looked down at the alien maiden. She was still pressed against the rock, shaking. She was staring up at him. Her large eyes were wide with a new kind of fear. She was afraid of him now. June felt a pang of sadness. He had saved her, but he had scared her too. Slowly, carefully, he slung the heavy rifle over his back. He held up his empty hands, showing her he meant no harm. Then he started to climb down the steep side of the ravine, towards the lonely, frightened girl he had just saved. The climb down into the ravine was slow and careful. Loose stones slipped under June's boots, clattering down the steep slope. He kept his hands free, holding them out to his sides to show they were empty. He did not want to frighten the alien girl any more than she already was. She watched his every move. her body still pressed tightly against the large rock as if she wished she could disappear into it. When he reached the bottom, he stopped a good distance away from her. The air in the ravine was cool and still. He could see her more clearly now. Her pearl-like skin seemed to almost glow in the dim light. Her dark hair was long and tangled with bits of leaves. Her simple robe was made of a soft woven material, now torn at the sleeve and dirty from her flight. Her eyes, a deep and luminous shade of amber, were fixed on him with pure terror. He slowly, very slowly, reached up with both hands and unlocked the seals on his helmet. He heard a faint hiss of air as the pressure equalized. He lifted the helmet off his head and tucked it under his arm. The girl gasped softly. She had probably never seen a human before. His face, with its short-cropped black hair and brown eyes, must have looked as strange to her as her appearance did to him. He tried to make his expression soft. He tried to smile, but it felt stiff on his face. He had not smiled in a long time. "It's okay," he said, his voice sounding strangely loud and gentle in the quiet ravine. He knew she would not understand the words, but he hoped the tone would be calming. "You are safe now. They are gone." He took one small step forward. She flinched, pressing herself harder against the rock. A small sound like a whimper escaped her lips. June stopped immediately. He knelt down, making himself smaller, less threatening. He placed his helmet on the ground beside him. He pointed a finger gently towards her, then back to his own chest. "You and me," he said slowly. Then he pointed in the direction the hunters had run. He made a sweeping motion with his hand, as if pushing something away. "They are gone." He shook his head. "No more danger." She just stared, her chest rising and falling rapidly. He needed to gain her trust. He looked around, thinking. His eyes fell on a small trickling stream at the edge of the ravine. He pointed to it, then to his mouth, making a drinking motion. "Water?" He walked slowly towards the stream, making sure to give her a wide berth. He knelt by the water. He pulled a small, clean cloth from a pouch on his suit. He dipped it in the cool, clear water. He held it up, letting the excess water drip. Then he pointed to a nasty-looking scrape on her arm. It was oozing a faint, silvery liquid. Her blood, he assumed. He mimed cleaning his own arm with the cloth. "To help," he said softly. "To clean." He took a few cautious steps toward her, the wet cloth held out in front of him like an offering. He moved as if approaching a scared wild animal. He stopped when he was still an arm's length away. He stretched out his hand, holding the cloth for her to take. For a long moment she did not move. She looked from his eyes to the cloth and back again. The raw fear in her eyes was slowly being mixed with confusion. This creature had a terrifying weapon and a loud voice, but its actions were gentle. Very slowly, her hand uncurled from where it was pressed against the rock. Her fingers were long and slender. She reached out and tentatively took the cloth from his hand. Her touch was light and cool. She looked at the cloth, then at him. He nodded encouragingly. "For your arm." She understood the gesture. She carefully dabbed the wet cloth on the scrape on her arm. She winced slightly, but then the coolness seemed to soothe her. She cleaned the silvery residue from her skin. Some of the tension seemed to leave her shoulders. June felt a small wave of relief. It was a start. He stood up slowly. "We cannot stay here," he said, looking around the ravine. It felt exposed. They might come back. "You should come with me, to my home. It is safe there." He pointed up towards the ridge where his listening post was. He then pointed to her and made a walking motion with his 2 fingers. "You come with me?" She followed his pointing finger. She looked at the strange metal building she could just see at the top of the ridge. Fear returned to her eyes. She shook her head quickly, taking a small step back. June understood. To her, his home probably looked like a cage or a trap. He was still a stranger, an alien. He thought for another moment. He needed to show her he was not a threat. He unslung the heavy rifle from his back. Her eyes went wide with alarm. He quickly held it out to the side, and with a deliberate motion he placed it on a large flat rock. He pushed it away out of his immediate reach. He held up his empty hands again. "See, no weapon. I will not hurt you." He walked a few steps towards the path that led out of the ravine. He stopped and turned back to her. He gestured for her to follow. He tried to put all the kindness he could into his expression. "Please. It is not safe here." The girl looked at the rifle lying on the rock. She looked at the empty hands of the human. She looked at the path the hunters had taken. The memory of the chase was clearly fresh in her mind. She looked back at June's face. She seemed to be weighing two different fears. Finally, she took a hesitant step forward, then another. She did not come close to him, but she followed, staying several steps behind. "That's it," June said softly, turning to lead the way. "It is okay." The walk back to the post was slow and quiet. June walked ahead, making sure his path was easy for her to follow. He could hear the soft rustle of her footsteps behind him. He did not look back too often, not wanting to scare her. When they reached the outer door of the listening post, she stopped again, her eyes wide as she looked at the heavy metal structure. June keyed in the code. The door slid open with a low hum. Bright artificial light spilled out into the twilight. He stepped inside and turned to her. He gestured inside. "It is okay. You can come in." She stood at the threshold, frozen. She peered into the bright, clean metallic interior. It was so different from the natural world she knew. June walked to the small kitchen area. He picked up a cup and filled it with water from the dispenser. He came back to the door and held it out to her. "You must be thirsty," he said. She looked at the clear water in the clean cup. Her thirst must have been greater than her fear. She slowly reached out and took the cup. Her fingers brushed against his. She took a small sip, then a longer drink. She drank all the water. She handed the empty cup back to him, her eyes looking at him with a new curiosity. The outright terror was gone. June smiled, a real, genuine smile this time. He stepped back, giving her space. He pointed inside. "Please, come in and rest." She took a deep breath. Then she stepped over the threshold and into his world. She stood just inside the door, looking around at everything. Her eyes moved over the blinking consoles, the screens showing data, the small, neat bed, the chair, the hydroponics bay door. It was all so strange. June closed the main door. The sound made her jump. "It is just the door locking," he explained. "To keep us safe." He walked over to his chair and sat down, trying to seem as relaxed as possible. He watched her explore the room with her eyes. She was like a lost bird that had flown into a house. She pointed to the hydroponics bay. Through the glass door, she could see the green plants growing. "Those are my plants," June said. "My food." She looked back at him. She seemed to be gathering her courage. She pointed a delicate finger to her own chest. "Una," she said. Her voice was soft and melodic, like the sound of a small wind chime. June's heart leapt. She was telling him her name. It was a gift of trust. He pointed to her. "Una?" She nodded, a small, shy movement. He pointed to himself. "June," he said clearly. "My name is June." "June," she repeated. The words sounded strange and beautiful in her voice. He smiled again. "Yes, June." For the first time, the ghost of a smile touched her lips. It was brief, but it was there. The fear was gone from her eyes, replaced by a weary gratitude. In that moment, the metal walls of the listening post did not feel so cold. The constant hum of the machines did not sound so lonely. For the first time in 10 months, June was not alone. He had saved her, and in doing so, he had saved a small part of himself from the quiet emptiness of his long watch. He had a guest. Her name was Una. The heavy door sealed shut, and the quiet hum of the listening post filled the space. Una stood frozen just inside, her large eyes taking in the strange world she had entered. The air smelled of clean metal and recycled air. Lights glowed from panels in the ceiling. Screens showed lines of symbols that meant nothing to her. It was all so hard and unnatural. June watched her from his chair. He saw the fear and wonder on her face. He knew this place was strange to her. He needed to make her feel safe. He stood up slowly. He did not want to startle her. He walked to the small kitchen area. He opened a cabinet and took out a nutrient bar. It was wrapped in a shiny silver package. He also took out a small red fruit from his personal stash. It was an apple from Earth. He had been saving it. He brought the food over to her. He held it out in his open palms. "You must be hungry," he said softly. Una looked at the strange items. She pointed to the nutrient bar, her head tilted in question. June understood. He carefully tore open one end of the wrapper. He broke off a small piece of the dense brown bar. He put it in his own mouth and ate it. He wanted to show her it was safe. He held the open bar out to her again. Hesitantly, she reached out and took it. She sniffed it. Then she took a small bite. Her eyes widened slightly. It was not the food she was used to, but it was food. She was clearly very hungry. She ate the rest of the bar quickly. Then she looked at the red fruit. June held it out. "Apple," he said. She took it. Her fingers traced its smooth, round shape. She seemed to appreciate its natural form more than the packaged bar. She took a small bite. A look of pure surprise crossed her face. Then she smiled. It was a real smile this time, bright and warm. She liked it. June felt a happy warmth in his chest. He had made her smile. He pointed to the chair near his console. "You can sit, rest." She understood the gesture. She walked to the chair and sat down. She moved with a quiet grace, even though she was tired and hurt. June remembered the cut on her arm. He went to the small medical kit on the wall. He took out a tube of med gel and a clean bandage. He showed them to her. He pointed to the scrape on her arm. "May I?" he asked, gesturing with the tube. Yuna looked at the tube, then at his eyes. She saw only kindness there. She slowly extended her arm towards him. June knelt beside her chair. His movements were slow and careful. He squeezed a small amount of the clear gel onto his finger. Gently, he applied it to the scrape on her arm. She flinched at the first touch, her skin cool against his finger. But the gel was soothing, and she soon relaxed. He smoothed the gel over the wound. The silvery bleeding had already stopped. The gel would help it heal cleanly. He then placed the soft bandage over it. When he was done, he looked up at her. "There, all better." Yuna looked down at the neat bandage on her arm. She touched it gently with her other hand. Then she looked at June. Her amber eyes were soft. She placed a hand over her own heart and gave a slow, small bow of her head. "It was a clear thank you." June nodded back. "You are welcome." He sat down in his own chair, facing her. They sat in silence for a while. The only sound was the hum of the machines. It was not an uncomfortable silence. It was a quiet sharing of space. June wanted to know more about her. He pointed to her, then pointed towards the world outside. "Where is your home?" he asked. Yuna understood. Her face became sad. She pointed in a direction somewhere to the east. Then she held up her hands far apart and brought them together quickly. She made a loud crashing sound with her mouth. Then she mimed many people running. She pointed to herself alone. She had been separated from her people. Something bad had happened. An attack, maybe. June's heart felt heavy. She was lost and alone, just like he was, but in a much more frightening way. He pointed to himself, then to the consoles around him. He mimed watching screens and typing. He pointed to the sky. "I am here to watch, to listen. I am alone too." She watched his mime, her head tilted. She seemed to understand the feeling of being alone. A look of shared loneliness passed between them. He wanted to show her he was friendly. He looked around the room for something to share. His eyes fell on his tablet. He picked it up. He opened a simple drawing program. He drew a rough picture of a smiling face on the screen. He showed it to her. Yuna's eyes lit up with curiosity. She pointed to the tablet. He handed it to her. She took it carefully as if it were a fragile egg. She looked at the glowing screen. She touched it with her finger and a line appeared. She gasped softly, pulling her finger back. Then she touched it again, drawing a wobbly line. A slow, wondrous smile spread across her face. She began to draw. Her movements became more confident. She drew a tall tree with blue leaves. She drew the 6 moons in the sky. She drew a group of stick figures with pearl-like skin standing together. Her family, her tribe. Her face was sad as she drew them. Then she pointed to one of the figures and then to herself. She was one of them. June nodded. "I understand." She erased the picture with a sweep of her hand, a gesture he showed her. She started a new drawing. This one was of a tall, human-like figure holding a large, blocky object, a rifle. She pointed to the figure, then to June. Then she drew a smaller figure with long hair hiding behind a rock. She pointed to herself. She was drawing what happened in the ravine. Then on the screen, she drew the human figure placing the large object down on a rock. She looked up at June, her eyes serious. She placed her hand over her heart again and bowed her head deeply. She was thanking him for putting the weapon down. For trusting her, June was deeply moved. She had understood the meaning of that gesture perfectly. "Thank you for trusting me," he said quietly. The hours passed. They shared more food. June showed her how the water dispenser worked. She was fascinated by the clean, endless water. He showed her the hydroponics bay. She loved the green plants. She reached out and gently touched a leaf of lettuce, her face full of wonder. He found a blanket and a pillow and made a comfortable bed for her on the floor. It was better than the hard chair. When it was time to sleep, he pointed to the bed he made. "For you." To sleep, Yuna looked at the soft bed. She looked at June. She seemed unsure. June pointed to his own small bed in the corner. "I will sleep there." He wanted her to know she was safe, that he would not bother her. She understood. She gave him another grateful look. She lay down on the blanket he had made for her. She was asleep almost instantly, exhausted from her ordeal. June lay on his own bed, but he did not sleep right away. He watched the slow, steady rise and fall of her breathing. The quiet post felt different. It felt alive. The loneliness that had been his constant companion for 10 months was gone. It was replaced by a feeling of purpose, a feeling of connection. He had saved a life today. He had shared his food and his home. He had made a friend, even if they could not speak the same language. As he listened to her soft breathing, he realized something. For the first time in a very long time, he was not just the warden of a listening post. He was a protector. He was a friend, and that felt much, much better. He finally closed his eyes, a small smile on his face. The post was quiet, but for the first time, it was not lonely. The soft glow of the morning suns filtered through the main viewport, painting the interior of the post with bands of pale yellow and faint red. June was already awake. He had made 2 cups of hot tea from his precious store of leaves. He sat at his console, sipping his tea and watching Yuna sleep. She looked peaceful. The fear and exhaustion of the previous day were gone from her face. In sleep, she seemed young and untroubled. He felt a strong desire to protect this peace, to keep her safe from the dangers of this world. He thought about what to do next. He could not keep her here forever. She had a family, a tribe out there somewhere. They were probably looking for her. He needed to find a way to help her get home, but how? He could not just let her wander out into the forest alone. The hunters might still be nearby. His thoughts were interrupted by a new, sharp sound from the console. It was a different alarm from yesterday. This one was a rapid pulsing beep, the motion sensor at the outer perimeter. June's heart jumped. He put his cup down and turned quickly to the screen. A single large life sign was registered at the edge of the clearing. It was not one of the reptilian hunters. The energy signature was different, cleaner, more focused, and it was just standing there, not moving. Yuna stirred at the sound of the alarm. She sat up, her eyes wide with sudden fear. She looked at June. He held up a hand, trying to look calm. "It is okay. I will look." He turned to the external camera feed and switched it on. The screen showed the view from the camera above the main door. The clearing was bathed in the early light. And there, standing at the very edge of the tree line, was a single figure. It was another of Yuna's people, a male. But where Yuna was slender and graceful, this one was built for power. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his pearl-like skin covered in a network of fine, silvery scars that told stories of many fights. He wore armor made of polished, dark chitin and bone that fit his form perfectly. In his hands he held a long, double-ended pike. The ends of the pike glowed with a soft blue energy that hummed with a low, threatening power. This was a warrior. His face was set in a mask of cold, hard anger. His eyes, a piercing shade of gold, were fixed directly on the camera, as if he could see June through it. Yuna had come to stand behind June. She gasped when she saw the screen. "Tayson?" she whispered, her voice a mix of relief and alarm. June looked at her. "Tayson?" he asked. She pointed at the screen and nodded vigorously. She said the name again with more force. "Tayson?" It was clear she knew him, but her expression was not purely happy. It was worried. On the screen, the warrior Tayson moved. He took one step forward out of the tree line and into the clearing. He planted the butt of his energy pike firmly into the soil. Then he raised his free hand. He pointed one finger directly at the door of the listening post. Then he pointed that same finger down at the ground in front of him. The message was unmistakable. It was a challenge. "Come out and face me." June's mouth felt dry. This was bad. This warrior had found his way here. He must have been tracking Yuna, and he had seen the strange metal building. He had probably seen the human who lived inside. He had put the story together in his head. A strange, powerful creature in a metal den had taken one of their maidens. He was here to get her back. Yuna understood the situation immediately. She grabbed June's arm, her eyes pleading. She shook her head. "No," she said, a word she had learned from him last night. No, but June knew he had no choice. If he did not go out, Tayson would likely try to break in. The door was strong, but he did not know the power of that energy pike. A fight inside the confined space of the post could be disastrous. Yuna could get hurt. His only option was to go out and try to explain. He would not take his rifle. Taking a weapon would only confirm Tayson's suspicions. This had to be a show of peace, even if it was dangerous. He stood up. He looked at Yuna. "I have to go," he said softly. "I will try to make him understand." Her eyes were filled with fear for him. She held onto his arm tighter. Gently, he pried her fingers loose. He gave her what he hoped was a reassuring smile. It felt weak on his face. He walked to the door, his heart pounding in his chest. He keyed in the code. The door slid open with its low hum. June stepped out into the morning air. The door slid shut behind him, locking. He was alone in the clearing with the fierce alien warrior. Tayson watched him. His golden eyes narrowed. He looked June up and down, taking in the human's environment suit, his human face. His expression did not change. It remained hard and angry. He saw a kidnapper. An enemy. June held his hands out, palms open and empty. He took a few slow steps forward. He stopped a good distance away from the warrior. "My name is June," he said, his voice loud and clear in the quiet clearing. "I do not want to fight you. Yuna is safe. She is inside." Tayson's eyes flickered for a second at the sound of Yuna's name, but it did not soften him. It only seemed to make him angrier. This stranger was speaking her name. He let out a sharp guttural cry, a warrior's challenge. He dropped into a fighting stance, his energy pike humming as he spun it in his hands. The message was clear. Talking was over. June shook his head, keeping his hands raised. "No fight, please, understand." Tayson did not care to understand. He saw a threat to his people. His duty was to eliminate it. With a speed that was shocking, he lunged forward. The energy pike became a blur of blue light as he thrust one end directly at June's chest. June reacted on pure instinct. He threw himself to the side. The attack missed him by inches. He felt the heat from the energy blade as it passed. He landed hard on the ground, rolling back onto his feet. His military training was the only thing that had saved him. "This is a mistake," June yelled, his voice tight with fear and frustration. Tayson did not listen. He attacked again, a sweeping strike aimed at June's legs. June jumped back, barely avoiding the blow. He was completely on the defensive. He was outmatched in speed, skill, and weaponry. His environment suit offered some protection, but one solid hit from that pike would be the end. He could not win this fight. He could only hope to survive it long enough for Yuna to make Tayson understand. But would she be able to? The warrior's rage was a wall. June dodged another thrust, the movement clumsy and desperate. He was running out of time. June was tired. His body ached from the hard dodges and rolls. Tayson was too fast, too skilled. The energy pike hummed through the air, a constant threat. June knew he could not keep this up. One mistake and it would be over. He had to change the fight. He could not match the warrior's technique. But he remembered something from his first days on this planet. The gravity. Gaia 2 had lighter gravity than Earth. To June it felt normal. But to a species that had evolved here, with denser bones and muscles to handle the pull, it would be a constant, heavy burden. In a short sprint, Tayson was fast. But in a fight of movement and leverage, that weight mattered. June stopped trying to back away. As Tayson lunged forward again, June did something unexpected. He dropped low like a baseball player sliding into base. He did not try to block the pike. He went under it. His legs swept out, not with fancy technique, but with simple, raw power. He put all his strength into it, kicking at Tayson's leading ankle. It was like kicking a stone pillar. Pain shot up June's leg. But the effect on Tayson was immediate and dramatic. The warrior's own forward momentum, combined with the sudden, powerful impact on his leg, threw him completely off balance. His dense body, already fighting the planet's pull, became too heavy to control. He stumbled, his feet tangling. With a grunt of surprise, he crashed heavily onto the ground. The energy pike flew from his hand and skittered across the grass, its blue glow flickering. June scrambled backwards, putting distance between them. He was breathing hard. He did not press his advantage. He did not jump on the fallen warrior. He just stood there, his hands still open and empty. "This is not a fight I want." June shouted, his chest heaving. I am not your enemy! Tayson pushed himself up onto his knees. His cold anger was now mixed with shock and confusion. He was their strongest warrior. He had never been knocked down so easily, so clumsily. The human's move had no grace. It was pure brute force. He looked at his pike lying out of reach. He looked at June, who was just standing there, not attacking. At that moment, the main door of the listening post slid open with a loud hum. Yuna ran out. She did not hesitate. She ran straight between them, placing herself directly in front of June. Facing Tayson, she spread her arms wide, shielding the human with her own body. She began to speak. Her voice was not loud, but it was fast and fierce. She spoke to Tayson in their flowing language, her words tumbling out. She pointed back towards the ravine. She mimed the hunters with their whips, her face showing fear. Then she pointed at June. She mimed the loud gunshot, the hunters running away. She pointed to the bandage on her arm, then to June, miming his gentle care. Her story was clear. He saved me. He helped me. He is a protector. Then she pointed to June's rifle, still inside the post. Then she pointed to the ground where June had placed his own weapon down in the ravine to approach her. She placed her hands together and bowed her head, the gesture of deep thanks. He laid his power down to show me peace. Finally, she stood straight and looked Tayson directly in the eye. She said one word with great force, and she was not just saying his name. She was telling Tayson who he was. A friend, a savior, not an enemy. Tayson listened. He was still on his knees. He looked from Yuna's determined, truthful face to June, who stood behind her, still breathing heavily, his hands open. The human had every chance to strike him while he was down. He did not. The human had a powerful weapon inside his den. He did not use it. The pieces of the story fell into place in Tayson's mind. The strange metal building, the human, the rescued maiden. He had seen a monster, but Yuna showed him a hero. He had tested the human's strength in battle and found it was not used for cruelty. The cold rage drained from Tayson's face. It was replaced by a look of slow understanding and then respect. He lowered his head for a moment. Then he slowly stood up. He did not go for his pike. He looked at June. He placed a closed fist over his own heart. It was a different gesture from Yuna's. It was a soldier's salute. A warrior's acknowledgement of another warrior. He gave a short, sharp nod. June understood. The fight was over. He let out a long, slow breath he did not realize he had been holding. He nodded back. June, he said, tapping his own chest. Tayson repeated the nod. He then walked over to where his pike lay. He picked it up, but he did not hold it ready to fight. He held it upright, a sign of peace. He spoke a few words to Yuna. Yuna turned to June, her face bright with relief and happiness. She pointed to Tayson, then back towards the forest. Home, she said, the English word feeling strange but wonderful in her mouth. June felt a twist in his heart. She was going home. He was happy for her. Truly he was, but the post would be lonely again. He smiled a little sadly. Good, you should go home. Yuna understood his smile. She stepped forward. She did not bow this time. Instead, she reached out and gently took his hand in both of hers. Her skin was cool and smooth. She looked into his eyes, her own eyes shining. Thank you, June. Then she let go. She walked over to stand beside Tayson. Tayson looked at June one last time. He raised his hand, not in a challenge, but in a farewell. Then he turned, and with Yuna at his side, he began to walk towards the forest. Yuna looked back over her shoulder, waving once. June waved back. He watched them until they disappeared into the trees. The clearing was empty again. The quiet returned. He stood there for a long time. The memory of the fight faded. The memory of Yuna's smile and her hand in his remained. He had been alone. Then for a short time he was not, and now he was alone again. But as he turned to go back into the quiet humming post, he did not feel the same crushing loneliness as before. He felt something else. A connection. He was not just a warden anymore. He was June, the human who saved an alien maiden. He was June, who earned the respect of a fierce warrior. He was a part of this world now in a small way. He stepped inside. The door closed. The screens glowed. The machines hummed. It was quiet. But it was a quiet that held a memory of friendship. And for now, that was enough.